So last year, a show came out on NBC based on a show that came out in the late 80s, the early 90s. Some of us may be probably a little bit, hopefully, because this new one, terrible, okay? I'm going to say it's terrible. First one, the original, always better, right? So same name and everything. Anybody ever watched the old version, not the new version? Quantum Leap, anybody? Love Quantum Leap. I love me some Quantum Leap, right? If you don't know what Quantum Leap is, it was basically about this physicist who discovered how to go back in time. He could go back in time during his lifetime, right? Couldn't go back before his lifetime, could only go back during his lifetime. And he was always going into some body, like a person's body, and he was there to put right what once went wrong. You guys remember this show? I loved this show, right? And it was hard for me to even watch, but I think I watched almost every single episode, if not every single episode. It was hard because it came on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. Guess what happened at 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights? Wednesday night midweek service. We always had a midweek service. It would get over about 7:55. I would rush home. As a 12-year-old, I would be rushing home through the woods because we live right behind the church, through some woods. I would rush through the woods to get home just in time to click on NBC so I could watch me some Quantum Leap. It was fantastic. I loved it. There were awesome episodes. There's one where he jumps into Lee Harvey Oswald. Actually, it was a two-part series. He jumps into Lee Harvey Oswald, and he's wanting to stop the assassination, but he can't. There's one where he jumps into himself as a little boy, wanting to save his father and his brother's life, but he can't, because that's not what he was there for. The very next episode is actually he jumps into his brother who is in Vietnam. And he wants to, again, save his brother's life from being killed in Vietnam, but he can't. I love the show. I don't have them all memorized, but I got a lot of them. But one of my favorites, if not my favorite, is this one episode where he jumps into a blind concert pianist's body. Now, the concert pianist, he's blind, but Sam Beckett, right, the main character, he's not blind. He can see. He has to pretend as if he is blind. And there is this one part of the episode where his girlfriend's mother sneaks up on him while he is reading the ingredients of some dog treats. He's got no way necessarily to explain it. But later on in the episode, he's there, and his girlfriend runs away. She's upset with him because of what the mother has told her, that he's not really blind. She runs off. He's trying to go after her, running through a crowd. And as he is running through this crowd, somebody snaps a picture, and the flash bulb goes off right in his eyes. And guess what? He is temporarily blinded. He can't see a thing. He ends up saving the woman's life, which is what he was sent there to do in the first place. But he can't see anything. And towards the end of the show, the mother, who is wanting to prove that he isn't blind, lights a match to light her cigarette with, and instead shoves it right in front of his face. But he doesn't flinch. He doesn't even know that it happened, because he's blind. He ends up saving the girl's life. He ends up changing the heart of the mother who hated all men. That's why she wanted her daughter to have nothing to do with him, because she hated all men. And he ends up restoring that relationship between mother and daughter. Now, we're not here to talk about restoring relationships or saving anybody's life. We're actually here to talk about some blindness going on. Okay? We're talking about light and darkness, about blindness and vision. That's what we're here to talk about here this morning. This is what Jesus is really talking about. Jesus is speaking about these opposites, this light and darkness, this vision and blindness, right? He is talking about these opposites in reference to himself and the effect that it has on our holiness. And so what we see here as we're going through these few verses, we're actually looking at 4 micro lessons that point to the macro lesson about who Jesus is and how he then affects our holiness. So this first micro lesson has to do with our purpose. Has to do with our purpose, or excuse me, not our purpose, excuse me, the purpose of light and eyes. The second one has to do with power. The third one has to do with actually a paradox that Jesus gives. But then ultimately the fourth one is the product that comes from all of this. So it's the purpose, the power, the paradox, and the product. If you will, please stand with me for the honor of the reading of God's Word. Again, if you're using the Pew Bible, that's page 817. We're looking at verses 33 going all the way to 36. So no one, after lighting a lamp, puts it in a cellar or under a basket, but on a stand, so that those who enter may see the light. Your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. But when it is bad, your body is full of darkness. Therefore, be careful lest the light in you be darkness. If then your whole body is full of light, having no part dark, it will be wholly bright, as when a lamp with its rays gives you light. Thank you. You may be seated. So again, keep in mind, as we're going through this sermon, as we're going through this study, that we are looking at the macro lesson. All these points, all these four little subpoints, they're pointing to one macro lesson, who Jesus is, and how he affects our holiness, and not really just our holiness, but also our peace and our joy as well. So Jesus is teaching this so that everyone who heard his words there in the crowd, and all of us who are then reading afterwards, will understand who he is and his effect upon our lives. So that, again, that first micro lesson is on purpose, the purpose of light, and really the purpose of our eyes. And let's just be honest here, because it typically seems like this lesson is axiomatic. It's just kind of self-evident. And often Jesus' lessons are just really self-evident, but he goes deeper in them, or at least he means something deeper that people will possibly or probably even miss. The purpose of light is to help people see. I know that's profound, but that's the purpose of light. It's there to help us see. Now, probably all of us at some point in time have found that light is extremely helpful for seeing. If we've ever gotten up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or to get a drink of water or something like that, and we decided that we were not going to turn on the lights, at some point we probably have figured that we wish that we had turned on the lights, because somehow, inevitably, we will find a Lego, right? Or we will find something that was on the floor that we didn't see, and we kick the dog, or we kick a shoe, or something like that. Or, if it's really bad, we almost break a pinky toe and bruise a shin, right? And at that point, we have probably discovered what Jesus has just taught, that when we have light, it is there to help us see. It's there to enlighten things. It is there to illumine things all around us. Light just helps us see. That's why when we turn on a light, we don't tend to hide the light. Otherwise, it goes against its entire purpose. It is counterproductive to its purpose. Again, we've probably all been there, where we've turned on a light when that light did not want to be turned on. Maybe somebody's playing some hide and seek in the house, and they want the lights off. Or maybe there's a movie that's going on, and we've got to get to the kitchen. So we, understanding the purpose of light is to help us see and not step on things or hurt ourselves, we turn on the light, and then we hear it from the people watching the movie, turn that light off. Or maybe better yet, we've had a teenager in our house who likes to sleep from 4 a.m. until 4 p.m. And it's now 10 a.m. and you want that teenager to be up. So what do you do? You turn on the light, and then your teenager then subsequently, they will then yell at you to turn that light back off because they're trying to sleep. Right? Because everybody understands what a light is for, and we understand that we don't hide a light when we turn it on. The whole purpose is to actually see. We get that. So Jesus says here, verse 33, let's go back. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it in a cellar or under a basket, but on a stand, so that those who enter may see the light. Now, do you see those words there, so that, in verse 33? You see those words? So that. That's the Greek word, hina, which brings about the idea of purpose, so that. It's the idea of purpose. It's always good to take note of the so that's when we read Scripture. A couple of years ago, I told you I gave you a little Christmas gift. You guys remember what the Christmas gift was? It was one word, for or because. Okay, 2 words maybe. For or because. We always want to look for the for or because. And the reason for that is because it gives us a reason for what has just been written or what is about to come after. So that is now a new word that we need to be always on the lookout for because it's giving us the purpose of something. This is the purpose so that we would see. Now again, remember, this is only a micro lesson. Clearly, Jesus doesn't want to just give us a lesson on what lights or lamps actually for. Clearly, this is a metaphor for something deeper. There's something more profound than this. Because here he is actually referring to himself. God sent Jesus into this world to give it light. We probably know, most of us probably do, right? That Jesus even said in John, I am the light of the world. He is the light. He came to illumine the world. So this is one of his main purposes. And just like when we flip on a light or we turn on a flashlight or have a lantern or whatever it might be, even light a candle, that is there to illumine what's going on, and we don't hide that. So here it is that God says, I have given you this light, and I am not going to hide it. The very moment of Jesus' ministry begins, he is not going to hide the light from the world. It is there to illumine the world. That's why Jesus does what he does, and he constantly is doing it in public. He is there to give light. Many in the crowd, especially the Jewish leaders, but even the rest of them, just want Jesus kind of to lay low, to kind of go away, to stop bothering them, to stop messing with the status quo. Just hide that light a little bit. But the problem was that everyone's walking in darkness. Even if they didn't know that they were walking in darkness, they are. Like that teen that just wants the light to get turned off, so the crowds just want Jesus to hide himself, at least the teachings. Hide those teachings. Hide those illuminating words. Stop. Stop talking about the kingdom. Stop talking about yourself. Stop talking about hell. We're good with the signs. Remember, they're here for the signs. This is what we've been looking at for the past few weeks, right? They're here for the signs. They could do without the teachings. They could do without the preaching. Just hide it. Jesus is saying, we don't hide light. We give it. Snuff it out. It's not what we do. That word cellar in this verse, it's where we get our word. It's from the Greek, and it's where we get our word cryptic. Just simply means a hiding place. It doesn't necessarily mean like a wine cellar or a basement or something like that. It just means a place that is hiding. It's a hiding place. Jesus says we don't go and we don't light lights so that we can just simply hide them. No one lights a lamp and then puts it into hiding. Again, but that's what many want Jesus to do. Go hide. Right? Same time, nobody lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. Nobody puts it under a jar to hide. These baskets were sometimes used to snuff out a lamp, right? You put it on top, deprives of oxygen, uses it all up, and then it goes out. It's a big basket. It's not a small basket. Probably actually more like what we see with Gideon. You may know the story of Gideon. He's going to go and fight the Midianites. He's got torches. But he doesn't want to give away his position. He doesn't want the Midianites to see him before he arrives. So he's got his lit torches. And what does he do with those torches? He puts a jar over them, right? And divided the 300 men. This is what he says. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets into the hands of all of them and empty jars with torches inside the jars. This is actually the exception to the rule. Gideon wanted the light. He needed the light, but he didn't want the light to be seen too soon. Thus, he hid the light. But it is the exception that proves the rule, because that seems strange. It seems counterproductive to what the light is for. It's such an extraordinary exception to hide light. But a lot of people wanted Jesus to take Gideon's approach, hide that light. It wasn't so bad maybe even that he had the light or even that he was the light. The bad part was just simply that he was shining the light. He needed to keep those teachings to himself. Those parables needed to stop. Stop drawing the crowds away from the rabbis, from the Pharisees, from the Sadducees, whoever it was that was teaching them. Stop drawing our crowds away from us. Stop putting the light in front of people. But the world hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all. Nobody minds if we have the light of Christ in our lives, so long as it stays hidden from everybody else. And we need to understand, kindness and niceties, that's not the light of Christ. There are plenty of people who do not know Jesus that are kind and nice. When I'm talking about the light of Christ, I'm talking about Jesus himself, the gospel message of sin and repentance and sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross and rising again. That everyone needs the Savior, and salvation is found in him alone. The world says, just keep that to yourself. Nobody wants to see it. Which that then leads us to that second purpose. Remember I said it's not just the purpose of light, but it's also the purpose of the eyes. Your eye, Jesus says, your eye is the lamp of your body. In other words, the eye's purpose is to let that light in for the rest of us. Right? The light that we let in only comes in by our eyes. Physically, that is how it works, right? Those who are blind, they see darkness. They don't see anything else. We who can actually see, we see because light is being let in. That's how it works with the physical eyes. It's why we have eyes. Again, not too profound. We know that. God gave us eyes so that we could see. He gave us eyes to let the light illumine up our minds and our hearts and our souls. We get that with the physical life. How hard it is to see that with the spiritual life. We get that we have physical eyes. We get that that's how the physical eyes work, but our spiritual eyes, we don't pay nearly as much attention. Let me ask you this. You don't have to answer. Just a thought. If you had to lose one of your senses, either, because what difference does it make if we lose our sense of smell? Probably most of us have done that in the last few years, right? Either your eyes or your ears, your hearing or your sight. Which would you rather lose? Hearing? Sight? Hearing? Each of us have different points of view on this. No? I think I would probably, I've always wondered what it would be like to be blind. But then I also wonder what it would be like to not hear. And to be honest with you, I don't want to lose either one. I don't even want to choose. But if we lose the sight, we lose so much. We lose so much because the eye is the lamp of the body. We get that. We don't want to lose our sight, but we are so careless oftentimes when it comes to our spiritual sight. We will go to the eye doctor. We will take the drugs if we have an infection in our eyes. Right? We make sure, maybe some of us, possibly not all of us, right, to clean our contacts if we put them in. Because we know that eyesight is precious. But how much effort do we put into the sight to our souls? Let's go on to the second micro lesson here. First was the purpose of the light in the eyes. Second is the power of the eye. Let's look at verse 34 again. Your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light, but when it is bad, your body is full of darkness. Do you see the power that the eye actually has? It has the power to illumine the whole body. It can bring light to the entire body. All that you are is what Jesus is saying. Everything that you are It can bring light to everything that you are, or it could bring darkness to all that you are. It really depends on what we're doing with our eyes. The difference between whether light or darkness is let in has to do with what we are looking at, with the state of the eye. Is it healthy or is it bad? The word for healthy there is the Greek word haplous. It literally means to be simple. In other words, basically what it means is to have no guile. The eyes are open wide with no other agenda, no preconceived notion. They are sincere in what they are looking for answers on. There's no ulterior motives to this eye. Let me give you an example. If you want to, you can go to James chapter 1, verse 5. Because here is James using the adverbial use of it, right? If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. That word generous there, generously, that's the adverbial form of this one that says healthy. It simply means that God is simple in this. He has no ulterior motives when he is doing this. He gives generously, he gives sincerely, which is why he doesn't give it with reproach. If you are giving with no ulterior motives, then God is not going to give you wisdom and then make you feel bad about it. He gives generously, simply, sincerely. No ulterior motives. That's the eye. The eye that is beginning to look without ulterior motives, that is looking sincerely, is a healthy eye. We're open to see what God is up to see what he is doing. That's what an eye is. That's what the eye is supposed to do. It's an eye that is looking for the light without any agenda, without any preconceived notion. But what about that bad eye? That word for bad is the Greek word poneros. Poneros. It literally means evil. So yeah, we're talking about the evil eye, right? The evil eye. Now, there are two types of evil eyes, okay? There's the evil eye that is like a curse upon somebody, and that there's the superstitious kind of evil eye. And then there's just the evil eye where you look with suspicion. You look sideways at somebody, right? You don't like them. You look down your nose. You're squinting and have an angry eye towards them. That's more of what Jesus is talking about here. If people are looking with an evil eye, an eye that is full of suspicion, is full of hatred, is full of anger, has ulterior motives, kind of the opposite eye, right, of a healthy eye, then there is darkness within that body, within that whole person. There is darkness there. And it's interesting that Jesus would actually use this word because it sounds a little weird for Jesus to say it this way, but he's got a purpose here because we have to keep in mind who it is that he is referring to. Last week we stopped at verse 32. We read from 29 to verse 32. Go back and I want you to look at this because I want you to see, is there anything in verses 29 through 32 that might correlate to what Jesus is saying here between the healthy eye and an evil eye? Do you see anything? I hope so. What does Jesus call the generation? Verse 29, look at verse 29 one more time. When the crowds were increasing, he began to say, this generation is an, what's the next word? Evil generation, same exact word, just in the feminine form. Because generation is in feminine. This is an evil generation looking at me, the light, with an evil eye, with suspicion, with ulterior motives. Those that want him to hide his light in some hidden place so they don't have to deal with it. They didn't want their bodies flooded with the light that Jesus was bringing. This is exactly what John was saying in John chapter 3. He says, and this is the judgment. The light has come into the world and people loved the darkness rather than the light because their works were evil. Do you see how much power lies within the eye? If it's a sincere eye, if it's one that has no ulterior motives, is really truly looking for the light to try to understand the light, to see the light, then the whole body, the whole person is filled with light. If they come with suspicion, if they come with ulterior motives, and how many times do we see that with Jesus? Somebody comes up in order to test him, in order to make him look foolish. Right? If we come with ulterior motives, we get flooded with darkness. God promised to Jeremiah and to Israel and to really anybody and everybody, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. And let's be honest, though. Our natural condition is darkness. We were born in the kingdom of darkness. We were born with an evil eye. We were born blind to Christ and his glorious light. We are all born in sin and perishing in our sin. And we are given the gospel, that gospel message of light, who Jesus is, what he has done, who he can be for us. We are given that gospel message of light, but in our own sin and with an evil eye, we don't see it. Not until, of course, God changes things. Paul wrote to the Corinthians, says, and even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. This is what we are all born in. And we will remain in this state of being with blind eyes, with an evil eye, without being able to see the light of the gospel, the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. We will stay in there until God does something different in us. The people of Jesus' day, they saw Jesus. They had seen what he had done with their own eyes, heard what he had done on other occasions, but many had seen, most of them had seen what he had done. They would see the resurrection. They would be able to see and look at the empty tomb, and yet they would still look upon him with evil eyes rather than sincere, healthy eyes. They would be flooded with darkness rather than being flooded with glorious light. We today, we don't get to see that. Not with our own eyes. What we do is we believe based on witnesses. We didn't get to see the miracles. We only get to hear about them. We only get to read about them. We never got to witness the resurrection in and of ourselves. We didn't get to go the day after Jesus rose from the dead and look in the tomb and see that there was nobody there. We didn't get to see Jesus giving breakfast to his disciples and partake of that. We get to read about it. We get to hear it, but we believe it. We don't get to see it with our own eyes, only with the eyes of our souls, with the eyes of our hearts. But we see it if we see it. We only see it because of what God has done. Because God has changed it, changed the evil eye to a healthy, sincere eye. For God, verse 6, 2 Corinthians 4:6, right after this one. For God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. So there is power there. There's great power in the eyes, but not in our hearts. Our hearts are powerless to overcome evil. The evil that we are born into. It is only when God the Father says, let there be light, that we see with a healthy, sincere eye and a healthy, sincere heart. Which leads us to the third micro lesson there, the paradox. Because there is a paradox here. A paradox is just simply something that seems to be contradictory, but there is an actual explanation for it. So we look, therefore, verse 35, therefore be careful lest the light in you be darkness. That's an interesting way of putting it. That the light is darkness. It seems contradictory. How can light be dark? It's a paradox. But let's go back to that quantum leap. See, I'll bring it back around eventually, right? Quantum leap, he gets the flash placed in his eyes. And the way that they depicted it in Quantum Leap was that Sam, basically all he could see was orange and red and yellow and white. And they were just constantly going off. Just flashes going off. So that when any other type of light tried to get in, it couldn't get in. It left the rest of him in darkness. He couldn't see anything. He had no illumination whatsoever. This is Satan's strategy so often. It's not just so much that Jesus or that Satan wants to leave us in complete darkness. Oh, no. He wants to give us false lights that keep us from seeing the true light. They masquerade as true light, but it's really false light. It's like a filter, filtering out that true light, never getting into the body, never getting into the heart, never getting into the mind, never getting into the soul. But it leaves us just as dark. This is the issue that the people of Jesus' day were facing. Their light, their teachings from their rabbis, their Pharisees, their scribes, their Sadducees, whoever they were following, whoever they were aligning themselves with, those things were so incomplete. They were so defective, so false in many ways. They believed themselves to be the people of light because they had the law and the traditions. But for many, those traditions outshined even the law. Some just simply absolutely misunderstood the law altogether. And Jesus here gives the warning, be careful, literally look out, watch out. The word that he uses is the word where we get our word scope from, like telescope, microscope, to see, to watch, to look. Look out, lest your light, what you think to really be light, turns out to be darkness. It blinds you from the light. Now, we live in a day and age where we can get anything that we want just about at the drop of a hat. It used to be that if you wanted to find some bad teaching, some heretical teaching, you would have to stay up late at night. For those people who bought time on the local network, so you'd have to actually stay up late at night and watch it. You had to be pretty purposeful about getting it. Or sometimes you might be able to actually catch one of the TV stations that were on TV. I wasn't going to say it, but I did. You didn't hear that, right? On cable. Or on satellite, right? Had to watch one of those. Not saying that all of them are bad. Some of them are pretty decent. But there's a lot bad on there. You had to be purposeful about it. Today, we don't live in that kind of world, right? We get onto YouTube, and we just start watching some videos, and the algorithms that are in YouTube or TikTok, right? Those algorithms that are there will begin to see what we are watching and what we have watched many times before, or they will see what it is that what the tags are that we are looking for and such. And all those algorithms begin to take shape, and they begin to send us more and more videos like this. The problem is that necessarily that those algorithms, they don't know what is considered to be good biblical teaching and false biblical teaching. They're just sending stuff because it has the tag of Christian, or because it has the tag of preaching, or because it has the tag this and that we are looking for. And all of a sudden we get inundated with a whole bunch of nonsense, but it sounds almost right. And we keep watching it. And it keeps getting sent to us. We don't even realize what it is that is going on, what's happening to us. And then suddenly, over a period of time, we begin to wonder, why in the world am I more paranoid today than I was a few weeks ago? Why am I worrying more today than I was just a little bit ago? Why am I so confused? Why am I disagreeing with the people that I've never disagreed with or have an issue with before? Why? Could it be that darkness is masquerading as light, and we're putting it right in front of our faces and into our ears, and it's causing the whole body, the whole self, to be dark. Be careful, lest the light in you be darkness. Fourth micro lesson. Because there is a product that comes from light. Again, this is probably a little bit self-evident, but let's look at verse 36 again. If then your whole body is full of light, having no part dark, it will be wholly bright, as when a lamp with its rays gives you light. So if we're careful about what's going on, so that the light of Christ is coming in, then the darkness and the that masquerades as light is kept out, then who we are as a result and what we do, that's going to change. Jesus says it will be wholly bright in there. That's the result. That's the product that is produced by bringing more and more light into us. Holiness, brightness, lightness is going to have its full effect. Jesus isn't saying that we can avoid all darkness. We know that, right? We can't not see billboards that are on the streets. We can't help the ads maybe that pop up on our social media or on news sites that we're at or wherever it is. We can't help that. We can't necessarily keep the dark from getting to us, but we can keep it from getting in us. We are to avoid bringing the darkness inward. Jesus, in his light, shining through the eyes and into the body, produces a holy character. It produces holy living. How is that possible? Because the light of Jesus is shining within us, dispelling the darkness. Look what Paul says in Ephesians. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore, it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. So here's the simile. As when a lamp with its rays gives you light. That's a simile. So there is a metaphor before. The lamp is your eye. Here it is as a simile. As when a lamp with its rays gives you light. Literally, when a lamp flashes and it gives you light. So we've all probably have seen a candle. We've all lit a candle at some point or other. They had oil lamps for the most part. This is a little flame. I am told, I don't know if this is true, but I am told that you can be in the middle of a stadium. If there is complete darkness, you can light a lamp or light a candle, and you can see it from anywhere, so long as there's not obviously a beam in front of you. You can see it from anywhere in that stadium, so long as it's totally light. I've been told that. I've never tried it. I don't have that much money to rent out an entire stadium just for one little experiment, but I've been told that. Right? But we know how a light works. We know how lamps, we know how candles work. There they are, the rays, and some, they can give some rays, but it also flickers. It flickers and it dispels the darkness, the shadows over here, and then all of a sudden the shadows that are over there, and it begins to dispel because of the flickering back and forth. And if you really look at it, if you can't think about it with a poetic mind maybe, right? It's like a battle is going on between the darkness and the light. Those flashes back and forth. The light has already won. It's already actually dispelled the darkness. It's already brought illumination where there was once only darkness, but the darkness is trying to come against the light, and the light swipes at the darkness here and there and back and forth. That's how it is with Jesus. If you're wanting a holy life, a life wholly bright, having no part dark, then the eye has to be healthy. They must be open and sincere. No doubting. No suspicions. No secret agendas. We don't substitute the true light for darkness masquerading as light. We are careful to test the spirits because many false prophets have gone out into the world. We are careful to test the spirits because many deceivers have gone out into the world. And there are other ways of saying the same thing. Same thing that Jesus is teaching here. Paul tells us that we should not set our minds on things on earth, but on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. He tells the Philippians, he says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. In other words, flood the mind, flood the body, the soul with light, not darkness. Not darkness masquerading as light. Like we've seen over the last couple of weeks, there's a choice between two things: the kingdom of God or the kingdom of Satan. Gathering or scattering. Evil or holiness. Light or darkness. If it's not light of Christ that goes through the eye into the body, then it is darkness that we are letting in. We don't like to think of it that way. We don't like to say it that way. But that is the truth. It's one or the other. There's either light or there is darkness. We like to think that things that we are looking at and things that we are putting into our minds, those things are neutral, but they really aren't. Again, there are things that we cannot help but see, but let's be honest, there are quite a few things that we do want to see and that we willingly open our eyes to see. And we do so oftentimes without the least little thought of how it is shaping us in our sanctification or shaping us, molding us into despair. We watch television, movies, documentaries, reels, shorts, TikToks, whatever. And we do so uncritically. How does what we are being presented here align with the light of Christ and His Word? Do we ask that question? Most of us don't. I don't always. Rarely do we ask that question. So rather than shining light on the darkness that we are already letting in, the darkness is just given room. Somewhere way in the back, away from the light. But one day, it'll be its turn to turn its eyes and go after the light and try to extinguish that light. And we think that it comes out of nowhere, but it comes out of years of letting darkness into the body. So as we finish this section, like I said a few times, these are micro lessons pointing to one main lesson, one macro lesson. Who is Jesus? He is the light that everyone at some point in life wishes was hidden. But He's the only one who can illumine us. It's also a lesson on how light affects our holiness, our peace, our joy. And we've gone step through these micro lessons, seeing how they're true. Jesus is the light. And He was set out so that everyone, light for all, everyone could see. And whoever looks with open and sincere eyes will see and will be filled with light. But those who look through slanted, suspicious, evil eyes will be filled with darkness. If we're bent on sticking with our traditions rather than Christ, our light will actually show itself to be darkness. But if we let that go and look truly and sincerely for Christ, He will expel the darkness. And ultimately, we will one day be wholly bright. And there may be here some who have never looked for Jesus with that healthy eye, with the sincere eye. You may have gone to church your entire life. You've heard this kind of message for years. But you still look with suspicion at everything that's being done here, the songs that are being sung, the prayers that are being prayed, the sermons that are being preached, the communion that is being given. You look with it and go, I don't see it. I don't get it. I'm fine the way I am. But you're not. You're not fine the way you are. You are in darkness, and you need the true light. You've never actually opened up your eyes to Jesus, but let me encourage you to do so today. Some of us, most of us probably, still have areas where we haven't dealt with the darkness, the dark matters. There are areas where we want to keep our eyes on this or on that over there. Or maybe it's almost new. It's not that we've been doing this for our entire Christian life. It's so much that things have come up, and we've all of a sudden gotten into things that we haven't given much critical thought to, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and whatever else. Whether it's unwittingly or wittingly, it doesn't necessarily matter. We've allowed false light to masquerade as darkness within us. And looking at those thoughts, those philosophies, those celebrities that are counter to the light of Christ, we suddenly have realized that there's a lot more darkness in us than we realized before. But today can be the day of repentance, of letting those things go, having Christ shine brighter than ever. May we do that. Let's pray.